This title didn't come out of nowhere. The construction industry is full of con artists. It's not just cowboy builders, it's people that aren't aligned, don't have morals. There's so many people that aren't ethical in the industry. And there's so many people that have found a way, a loophole, a clause, a way of an amendment, whatever it may be, to potentially screw people. A lot of the time, the issue is one toxic employee. When someone's toxic and not beneficial for your business, you need to deal with them, protect your business and protect the rest of the employees. In 2026, if you aren't using some form of software to take away some of the human error and to actually make you more efficient, you're going to be left behind. But this is the way it is. No, not having that. It's not.
Welcome to Taking the Con Out of Construction, the straight talking show that's changing the industry, one episode at a time. Small mistakes can cost big money and even more in time. But a small investment in listening to this episode could help you avoid disputes, delays, and costly pitfalls, while giving you the know-how to stop problems before they start. Let's turn complexity into clarity and take the con out of construction.
Welcome back to Taking the Con Out of Construction. This episode takes a firm stance on a conversation the industry often dances around. Construction isn't broken because of a lack of people, ideas, or effort. It's struggling because poor practice has become acceptable and chaos has been normalised. Michelle, can you explain why raising standards is the real lever for change and how meaningful improvement actually happens through behaviour, not commentary?
Yeah, I've mentioned before that I believe the construction industry is at least a decade, if not more, behind the rest of the world. And I think this is the prime issue. You've got other industries that are ahead that are using technology, software, legislation. And the construction industry is based on decent human beings back in the day with a firm handshake and morals who stood by their word. And that was fine for a long time. But then you had people that brought contracts into things and brought lawyers into things and used the upper hand of not necessarily standing by their word. And then you had miscommunications and you had misalignment of understandings. And the more complicated that the buildings were getting and the more technology was being used, more modern methods, the industry started to move in a different way and not everybody understood and there wasn't clarity. And then it was more about separation. Every generation that comes in learns something different. You see this on site quite a lot and you see the older guys and the younger guys and there's new technologies coming in and the older guys have a level of experience and should be respected and the younger guys don't necessarily do that. And there's a lot of times on site that I've merged a younger guy with an older guy and they are men generally. It doesn't have to be men, but generally they are. If they're older in their late 40s or 50s and they're struggling to read their drawings off their phone and they're not particularly technical, I would say, right, here is your little technical wizard. He's going to help you with your emails and all the things that you find really frustrating and really difficult. You have this guy. He's already agreed because you have to speak to them first. He's already agreed he's going to help you. Now, what he's going to learn from you is your experience and you point to them and go, right, you are going to listen to him because he's got 20 years worth of experience. There isn't a problem that you are going to come across that he hasn't already got a solution for. But you, speaking to the older one, there are easier ways of doing things. Things have moved on and actually to make your life easier, you're spending less time on your knees. He's going to do all the crawling around on the floor and that's what you're going to have to do because that's what he did when he was 20. This is the way it works. Work together as a team. And if you get them on the right mindset, they are incredible partnerships. You have to have the right people to do that, obviously. But that hasn't happened enough in the industry, in my opinion. So you've got people coming in with fresh ideas, new ideas, and there are so many entrepreneurs in the construction industry, whether that be developing products or businessmen. The amount of plumbers, electricians that were entrepreneurs and then have built a whole entire multi-million-pound business from it because they had an entrepreneur spirit and they have this education and they run with it. You've got so many different people, but what you don't necessarily have is people holding things together. And then you get a whole load of other people there, academics that will stand there and go, well, like, the advantage here is I can screw you from doing this, hence the taking the con out of construction. This title didn't come out of nowhere. Like, the construction industry is full of con artists, but it's not just cowboy builders. A lot of people think it's cowboy builders. It's not. It's people that aren't aligned, don't have morals. I'm with the CIOB. I've only been chartered for a year, but I've been practicing ethically for my entire career because that's just the way that I am. And yes, I've got the rubber stamp now, but I've always been that way. And it's the same with the RCS and the CIOB. They're really hot on ethics. And it's about being a member of either of those groups as you were supposed to be ethical. That's the key thing. There's so many people that aren't ethical in the industry. And there's so many people that have found a way, a loophole, a clause, a way of an amendment, whatever it may be, to potentially screw people in one way or another. I think the problem with the industry is about accountability. People make mistakes, and rather than owning up to them and dealing with them and being accountable for them, they'll just brush it under the carpet or forget about it, or they'll try to use some of the way of getting on. And the amount of times that I've had subcontractors particularly, and sometimes main contractors, they've come to me because they're in a dispute situation, they're worried about getting paid, and actually the person that's caused the problem is the client. But rather than the client taking responsibility and paying for that, because either they haven't employed the right team, they haven't done their instructions properly, they haven't understood what they're supposed to be doing, or whatever the reason is that they haven't delivered as a client, they haven't taken accountability for it. They don't like it, and they try to screw everybody else over because they don't want to pay for their own faults. That is what's wrong with the industry. Sometimes they'll have a whole team of solicitors that will back them up. That doesn't intimidate me, but it does annoy me. And they're the best cases that I love going up against unethical people, because there's always a way around it. But also, a lot of people will bully you. You'll get some horribly written letter, and people that aren't educated in the law or contracts or commercial aspects of running a business will just do what they're told, and they will drop their fee and they will take a small amount because they don't know how to fight it. That's where I come into my own, because I absolutely love defending the underdog and going up against the bully. That's what's wrong with the world, is people using power incorrectly and using something against somebody because they're not necessarily educated the same way that they are. And why should they? I've said many, many times, it took me 10 years to get my head around a JCT contract. And even now, I don't do contracts as much as I used to. But when I'm looking back at a contract and reading through, because obviously when I'm representing a client, I'm always looking at their contracts. And sometimes it takes me a while to get my head around it, because it's not as simple, especially a JCT. NEC and IETs are much simpler. But when you get a group of solicitors amending it left, right and centre because it's in legal language, it can become complicated. So I don't expect a leader of a mechanical and electrical firm or a plastering firm or a dry lining firm or any other firm for that matter to understand a JCT like I do, because I don't understand plastering like they do. I've got a good idea, of course I have, of all of the trades. I've got a good idea, but I don't know specifically, and I don't have that skill. And yeah, I've plastered walls before, not particularly well, but I would never say that I know their profession better, but I've got an overview of it. So I wouldn't expect them to understand mine. I mean, I went to university for 3 or 4 years, and I've been doing this for 25 years. That's why I'm the expert, because I know exactly what I'm doing. I've got that experience. I don't know how long it takes to do one wall from another. I've got a rough idea and for the different materials, but I'm not an expert. Ultimately, they're good at business, but then they're part of the business, whether that's getting the working or whether that's getting the jobs delivered. What they're not good at is contract and commercial management, unless they've got the experience. I've had some clients that I only work for when they've got a problem, which is quite a few clients, and I don't have to deal with them any other time, because you have a conversation with them. They know what their markup is. They know what their balance sheet looks like. They know what their profit and loss looks like. They know what gross profit they need. They know what their net profit is. They know the difference between the two. They know what their turnover needs to be to achieve whatever overhead percentage they've got. And if that drops, then they obviously need to make more money because they've got the percentage of overheads is higher, and vice versa. They know what their operating capital is. They know what their payment terms are. They know everything about their business because they're hot on it, but they haven't learned that on site. They learned that sitting in meetings with an accountant, a good accountant that they employed. They learned that by reading their management accounts every month. They learned that by asking questions from a consultant of some sort. So they learn about contracts. Like my clients, I love it when they turn around and quote me back something that I've quoted them 6 months, a year. I got a proposal from a client yesterday, and it was word for word what I've been telling them to do for 6 months. I love that, because it means people are listening and they're learning. But I also like the fact that that information that they're learning has empowered them, and they're using that in their daily life. They're making their business better. They're making better decisions. So we've got a lot of things changing in the industry. We've discussed many times about building regulations. We discussed about the low value adjudication process, which is allowing people to adjudicate more. Subcontractors are becoming more empowered. They're aware that if they don't get paid, if they don't get a pay less notice, they can go to adjudication and they will win. So things are happening, and people are not taking the 90-day payments or the 60-day payments because too many companies are going bust and they're just not accepting it. Insurance companies are aware of things. There's all different insurance policies now for insuring contractors and insuring projects and liquidation clauses and bonds and other bits and pieces. The way the market's moving, the entire industry is changing, and people aren't necessarily catching up. And in 2026, if you aren't using some form of software to take away some of the human error and to actually make you more efficient, you're going to be left behind. I'm working with some companies that are doing some incredible software that are not necessarily replacing human beings, but making human beings' jobs much, much better. I'm now able to offer my services to smaller clients. Previously, I was only working with clients with a minimum turnover of 8 or 9 million. Now I'm able to work with the smaller clients because I was far too expensive, because there is now software around that they can then sign up to that does a lot of the work for me. And actually, rather than me spending 9 or 10 hours a week for them, I can do the work I need to do for a couple of hours a week. Now that's substantially improved what I can do with them and the support I can give them, and substantially slash the cost in order to do that, because I'm not low ticket and I'm not a minimum wage, and far from it. I'm expensive, but that's because of my experience. I have clients that I've worked with for years, some that I've worked with for decades. I'm part of the team and that's just how we plod along. Most of the work that's done for them is done by one of my team rather than me, but I'm there to overview and I'm always at the end of the phone. But a lot of my clients, I will work with them extensively. We will be working together for 6 or 12 months. Sometimes it's 18 months, depending on the type of their business, where they're at when I start with them, how much we have to work with, how much trouble I need to get them out of, and then building the foundations of the success as the company grows. And then I'm always in the shadows somewhere for some of them. But majority of the time, I go in and I get people up to speed up to 2024, 2025, 2026 now, getting them into software, getting them using AI to some extent. I use AI all the time. I don't use it for my actual work, but a perfect example of when I use AI, if there's a particular contract that I need to review, or there's a clause in a contract I need to find, upload the contract, find me where the clause is, say about X, Y, Z, and it will tell me exactly which ones it is. Now, they're not always right, but at least rather than in a 250-page document, it's like a glossary. Where are these words mentioned? And I can flick through and I can find what I need to find. That has saved me hours. Commercial software where you send invoices and you train the AI to allocate it properly, with some of the software out there that's AI backed once it's trained properly, and me inputting the information and training that AI how to work with a particular trade or a particular company, so then it can do that work for me. 100%. It's no different to using clever formulas in an Excel. It just does it for you. So these are things that we need to be looking at, making sure that your accountancy software is actually producing information that makes sense. Is it set up for CIS? Is it doing the reports? Is it allowing you to do things properly? When you're sending a variation, do you have systems and processes to make sure you include everything in the variation that you're entitled to? Do you understand the process of submitting a variation? I don't want to go into more detail about that because we've covered this extensively in all of the other podcasts that we've done. And yes, talking about it has taken some time, and we're now got a number of episodes over 2 series that explain all the bits and pieces that I do. And no one's really going to learn what I've learned. It's impossible to put into sort of 45, 55 minutes my expertise on a total subject. But I hope that people have understood. And if you haven't listened to the other podcasts, please flick through. They don't have to be listened in order, but the order was specific and how the project runs and where you need to look at and the focuses of it. But they are there to drop back into. So at any point when you're reviewing a contract, by all means, re-listen to the contract podcast, because it will give you tips that you need. And it's not about saving the industry to some extent, although I did feel like I was here to save the industry at one point. And saving projects, it's not about saving anything. It's about increasing standards. And the most empowering thing that I find when I'm working with clients is the mindset around, this is the way it is. No, not having that. It's not. Because I've worked with a number of clients that are very successful at delivering projects. They still have the odd issue because of something where I come in and help them, but I've also learned how to do things the right way. Not every client I've worked with has been a disaster. Okay, yes, that's my expertise in crisis intervention, but I've also learned that what other companies do right, and where I've changed companies, how that's then created success. And actually I find other companies and they're doing it already. So I'm quite intuitive on what needs to be done and how to improve a business. That's why I do what I do. It's not about just all systems and processes. A lot of it is attitude. We've moved along. We need to be aware of what's going on, what systems are out there, because there are many people that are taking software on board that are using it on a daily basis. Yes, it's an expense, but they believe in that investment, so they invest in it, the time and energy to get it up and running, and then they reap the benefits tenfold of the time that it saves them, and obviously the money it saves them. You're reducing liability. The fact that you can have software that notifies you need to issue a pay less notice and get that pay less notice issued. If not, you're going to have an adjudication and it's going to cost you a minimum of $3,500 just to go to adjudication when you could have just paid it in the first place. Like, you get a few of them, that's a massive impact, even on a £10 million project. We need to be aware of what the current legislation is. And if you're not up to speed with it, then get someone in, whether it's on a one-to-one basis, a power hour, whether you're somebody that comes in and meets you on a monthly basis, get somebody on your board with that experience. So when you've got big decisions coming to the board, you've got someone around that table that understands the legality side of it, the building reg side of it, whatever it may be. Make sure you're employing the right people. And if you can't afford a full-time finance director, get a fractional one. But make sure when you're looking at that fractional director that they've got experience in your industry, or they've got experience in your line of work. They've got the experience that you need to benefit you. Get the right people, but interview them. Really get them to jump through hoops. Don't just take them on board because they say so. Get them to prove it. Get them to explain to you their vision. I'm not saying you get work for free because I don't agree with that, but you need to make sure that the person that you're employing is good. And if they're not right, then find somebody else. The first person, you might not necessarily work with your business, especially when it's fractured. That's the beauties of working fractional. There is no excuse not to get that advice. And I highly recommend that paying money, good money on decent advice and getting the right people in the frame, right systems, and getting them just implemented, because people can talk all day. I can tell you about all the systems and processes. I've been into many companies that have got process booklets and instructions that's 60 pages long or 60 files long. Read the room, speak to your audience. There is no way a team on site is going to read a whole document. You need to show them how to do it. It needs to be simple. And get something that works with your business, not necessarily other people's businesses. I remember watching a film, I think it was Cool Runnings. Yeah, Cool Runnings. Remember Cool Runnings? You got the Jamaican bobsleigh team. And I remember one part of the film where the guy, I can't remember his name now, but he was pushing his team to do it like the Swiss. The Swiss do this, the Swiss do that, the Swiss do something else. And in the end, I think after some disaster, it's a film I haven't watched for a while, but God, I loved it. I am not Swiss, I'm Jamaican. I need to do things the Jamaican way. I'm not Jamaican, I'm Italian. I do things in my way because that's how I do it. When I'm speaking to one of my clients I'm working with, like, this is what you need to say. Okay, don't say it the way I say it because that's going to sound really good coming from you. Say it in your way, especially if it's someone that doesn't effing blind or someone that effing blinds more than I do. This is a point you need to make. Make it in your way, in the way that you speak, in the way that you're comfortable in doing it. Do it your way. And yes, there aren't that many different archetypes, but you do have differences, and your team is your biggest asset. And make sure your systems work for the team you've got. Yes, your team could leave, but if you've built your entire company around them as a foundation and they feel motivated and they're looked after and they're supported and things are running well and they can do their job properly and they have the facilities and everything they need to do their job properly, life is comfortable and they feel secure, why would they? So what is the mission of your company? What are your core values? What's your mission statement? What's the vision for your company? How are they aligned? Where are you going with it? Who do you want to reach out to? Who are your client base? Who do you want to represent? How do you want to be seen in the industry? These are all important, and you need to instill that in your team. You need to make sure you've got the team that are in line with that. They understand that. They see their role in that, but you've also got the systems and processes to back that. For me, I have done main contracting, but only for the select clients that I want to and on the projects that I want to. But if I'm acting as a main contractor through H squared, then I become more of a delivery partner, because the way that I want to work is I will make sure that my client understands how to be a good client, because I can't do my best performance unless my client's being the best that they can be, rather than going, well, they haven't done this and they haven't done that and I'm going to charge them this and I'm going to charge them that. I'm going to say, right, this is what I need you to do. I need this from you at this date. And if you don't do it, there is going to be a consequence. I don't want to have to charge you, but unfortunately, if you don't, this is what's going to happen for X, Y, Z. Oh, okay, fine. No worries. We'll try it. And if they don't, they're like, we're really sorry. I didn't manage to hit this day for whatever reason. Now, would I charge them? Sometimes I would, sometimes I won't. Depends on the circumstances. I try to empower them as best as I can to be the client that I need them to be. Don't get me wrong, I've had issues. I've had to take many clients to court. I've had to fight for my own money. I know it. I get it. I understand it. Sometimes I've had to be shirty with some of my clients and saying, right, well, we've committed to a contract. I wasn't able to deliver it. You've prevented me from delivering what I needed to do because you didn't do X, Y, Z, but you still have to pay me for it because that's what we agreed and that's what's fair and reasonable. I don't like doing it. I really don't. But business is business. I always make an effort of empowering my guys. If they're not giving me what I need, then I raise them and say, you're not giving me what I need. And sometimes they're like, yeah, do you know what? It's on me. It's on me. And that's how I work. Now, that's my mission statement. That's my vision. That's how I want to operate. And I'm not saying everybody has to operate like that. Of course they don't. You have to operate the way that works for you. But I do think that having contracts that are aligned expectations and work for both parties prevents dispute. Having things agreed in advance and planned properly and everyone knows where they're going, and making sure that scope of works is accurate and everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, and they're also managed, they're motivated, and you contain them and get them to do what they're doing and give them accountability and all the other things that we've discussed. Make sure you're doing that. leads to a successful project. Accountability leads to a successful project. Looking at yourself in the mirror and going, actually holding your hands up, what did I learn from this? One company that I worked with was incredible. They were doing lessons learned on every project delivery or every modular installation. We sat down and had everyone around the table. What did we learn? What do we need to improve? And they were fantastic at improving. That's not going to work in every company. Every company's different. Getting your systems and your processes and your teams and the way that you work in your software to work with that ethos and attracting the people that are aligned with that ethos is important. The construction industry doesn't need one person that's going to come in and save it. We all need to take accountability. We're a big promoter of community getting involved and joint accountability. For example, there's lots of people complaining about the government and the NHS. If we all took accountability for the NHS and we turned up to appointments and we didn't get prescriptions that we didn't need, or we didn't go to A&E just because we couldn't be bothered to sit on the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning just to get an appointment. If we all did these things, we would save the NHS billions. Billions. The point of the matter is, it's about accountability and always looking at ourselves, making ourselves accountable first, showing accountability as part of leadership, but also understanding that the buck stops with us, but then making sure that we're empowering people, making people accountable, motivating them, giving them pride in their work. Then also when someone's toxic and not beneficial for your business, you need to deal with them or find out why they're toxic, protect your business and protect the rest of the employees. The amount of companies I've gone into, and a lot of the time the issue is one toxic employee. And I never raise the point and I never highlight it. But the work that I do empowering the other people, that toxic person ups and leaves way before I get anywhere near to pushing them. They see what's going on and things change around and it's not comfortable for them and they go. And it happens all the time. For me to shine a mirror to them and say, this is where you're going wrong, it's not comfortable. I know it's not. I've done it for myself for the last 10 years at least, going on the journey that I've been in and where I've gone wrong with certain things and my own internal growth is how can I help other people grow if I haven't grown myself? It can be uncomfortable, it can be painful, but we need to get into 2026. A lot of the construction industry hasn't even got into the 2000s, let alone the 2020s. Some of them are flying. There are some incredible businesses. Looking at some businesses with a client recently that set their company up in 2018, they've been comparing themselves to other companies that set up in 2018 and they're like, shit, I could have been here. This is what they've achieved. That's fine. Let's take this motivation. Let's not dwell on that. Let's go, well, actually, it's possible. It is possible. What have you got that they haven't got? There's no point in sitting there and looking at what they've done and feeling bad about it. Let's say, do you know what? This is what they've done. We're going to do this. Let's use that as our motivation because it is possible. See what they've done in the last 7 years. Now let's think about what we can achieve in the next 10. Yeah, okay, we might have done this wrong, that wrong, some other thing wrong. We've made a few mistakes. So what? But this is what we've done that's great. And this is where we've been. And this is where you were. This is where you are now. Let's forget about where you were in 2018. Where are you today? Let's build on that. And let's think, who are we going to be in 2027? Where are we going in the next 5 years? What's your exit plan? Where do you want this business to be in 10 years' time? What do we need to do? Let's get started on that. Forget about what we've wasted and the mistakes we've made. Forget about them. Keep them as experience, but let's not focus on them. What's done is done. Let's look forward where we'd want to be. What do you not want to be regretting this time next year? What are we not bringing in to 2027? We are starting now. We are starting now, and this is what we're going to achieve. And we're constantly keeping ourselves accountable, keeping myself accountable too, being as best that we can be and focusing on what we can do and what we can do to make the world and the industry better, what we can do to make ourselves better and what we can do to make our businesses better.
Michelle, the central takeaway here is simple but powerful. The industry doesn't need to be saved, rebranded, or endlessly reviewed. It needs clear standards and the willingness to uphold them. When expectations are explicit and behaviours align with them, projects stabilise, trust improves, and outcomes follow. Thank you very much, Michelle.
You're welcome.
If you found value in today's episode, hit subscribe so you never miss a new release, and share it with someone in the industry who needs to hear it. To learn more, access resources, or find out how Michelle Carr and Construction Alchemy can help you protect your projects, solve problems, and boost your profits, visit constructionalchemy.co.uk. Together, we can change the industry, one project, one company, and one episode at a time. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are based on the personal experiences of Michelle Carr and her guests. They are for general information only and should not be relied upon as professional or legal advice. Always seek your own independent advice before making decisions. Neither Michelle Carr nor Construction Alchemy accepts liability for any loss, damage, or consequences arising from actions taken based on this podcast. Thank you for listening.